Welcome everyone to the Israel Connection. Thank you for listening. I'm Esti Zenati, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Jonah Platt. Jonah is an actor, he's an artist, and a Jewish advocate for Israel and the Jewish people. And he's the host of the new podcast, Being Jewish with Jonah Platt, which is out today. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. Jonah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Esti.
So, Jonah, I know you've been pretty active online, advocating for Israel and the Jewish people in the past few years, but especially since October 7th. I know you've been very vocal about everything that's been going on, and your support for Israel and the Jewish people and everything that's going on in the U.S. So with what's going on in the past year, do you feel like everything that's been going on has brought you a little bit closer to your Judaism and to Israel in general?
Yeah, I would say definitely, and that's something that I hear a lot. It's a very common refrain from a lot of the people I talk to. It certainly strengthened my sense of Jewish purpose.
Yeah.
In terms of strengthening like my connection to being Jewish, I would say a little bit, but it feels more like it was already there, and what this moment has done is just sort of made it more of a focus and become more of my like daily life.
Yeah.
And I started wearing Jewish jewelry, which I had never done before, which I know a lot of people are doing now.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, everybody's trying to rock it with pride, which I love. You love to see it.
Yep. The ring I got before October 7th. So it's been going on for a while now with everything that's been going on. And being an Israeli in America, it's been weird.
Oh, yeah,
to say the least, especially the past year. Has it brought you any closer to Israel? Do you have any new feelings about Israel in the past year? Did you go to Israel at all since October 7th?
No, but I'm going this weekend. So I will be there I will be there for the anniversary of October 7th.
Okay, that's an important day.
Yeah, so I'll be there for that whole week. I haven't gotten a chance to go. I haven't been since April of 2023. So I have not gone at all in this past year. I definitely feel closer to the Israeli people, I would say, because I am interacting with so many of them over the past year on social media in a way that I haven't before. And I think, we're feeling it both ways. I think Israelis are feeling more connected to American Jews and seeing how important the relationship is going that way. And American Jews are feeling more connected to Israelis because we're feeling, a threat against the Jewish state is a threat against all of us. And certainly we're seeing, the ripple effects as the anti-Jewish hate explodes in America and all over the Western world, that whatever happens in Israel is an excuse to, let the old hate fly. So we're all connected.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like I see it on social media, especially with a lot more Jewish people, like Jewish Americans mostly, but I see people from other countries as well. They're more, outspoken. They talk about Israel a lot more. They, advocate for Israel, which I haven't seen a lot before then. I feel like people were a little bit in the shadows, when it came to Israel, but now a lot of people are, full out there and supportive.
Yeah, I mean, great. I want to give credit where credit is due. There have been people who have been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
But definitely, yes, the volume, both in terms of the amount and in terms of the, decibel level, has increased for sure.
Yes, there are a lot of people. I mean, I've been following a lot of social media accounts for since I think 2016 maybe, that have been very, very active in this whole thing, but there haven't been too many of them.
Yeah,
I feel
for sure.
Now it's like more like well-known names,
Definitely.
opposed to students and stuff. So what does Zionism mean to you? And do you feel like it shifted a little bit in the past year?
To answer the second part first, no. To me, the definition of Zionism is the only one, which is the belief that the Jewish people should have the right to self-determination in some part of the land to which they are indigenous. And I'm actually on a little bit of a crusade. I haven't spoken a lot about it. It's more like in real life in personal circles, but I want us to stop using the term Zionism and Zionist because, Israel already exists. We already have a Jewish homeland where the Jews live and have governance in some part of their indigenous land. And Zionism is like the dream that we will have it. And I hate that we keep framing ourselves as that, like, the existence is in the balance. Like, if enough people decide against Zionism, it'll just go away. It's not going anywhere.
No.
The country's there, the people are there. We don't in America still call ourselves like colonial rebels. It's like, we're Americans now. That war's over. America's here. And I feel like I'd like us to just start calling it, supporters of Israel, maybe, as opposed to just I'm a Zionist, because I think this place that has existed for 75 years should in fact exist.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I haven't heard that yet. So yeah, hopefully we'll catch on. Because you are right. I think it looks like people are scared of what could happen with everything that's going on right now, especially with Israel being attacked from all around, and also from people in America and people in Europe. And we haven't seen that kind of thing in years.
Yeah.
And that scares people for sure. But I know, and I think most of us believe and know that Israel is there and it's going to stay there. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and, we've seen in just the past 2 weeks with all the operations against Hezbollah, like, Israel is good at this. They've had to be out of necessity, and they're not going to be pushed over, and are far more sophisticated and ready for this. And it's because it's existential. It's like, Israel knows if they don't do these things, people are going to try to wipe them off the map. So we're ready for it. There was a great I reposted this Jordan Tillich. Sorry, I forget her last name. I don't know how to pronounce it. I only see it in print. But anyways, she wrote a great post of, like, Israeli bombs with Jewish stars on them taking out, weapons stores of a organization that has sworn to exterminate Jews. Like, this is what never again looks like,
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. It's the truth. It's like, we say, we're not going to just go quietly into the night. This is what it looks like.
Right. I know people have been saying this forever, but we're not Jews with trembling knees anymore. We're here, and we're going to stay here, and we're fighting for our existence. And I think what happened in Lebanon with Hezbollah, I think it proved that, we have power. And
that's something I say to folks a lot when they're like, I'm so worried that, like, the way things are going in America, it's like we're heading towards another Holocaust. And I'm like, there's never going to be another one, because we're ready now. And like, we're not going to let it happen. It is a different time. We are never going to be pushed around like that again. Right.
It's not those days anymore. And I heard from someone that experts say that it's going to take about 60 years to kind of, like, clear out the campuses with everything that's going on. I hope it doesn't take that long.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I hope for our children, the younger generation, and their children, whoever comes next, that we'll be able to take care of this problem soon. Like, clear out all the anti-Semitism and hate from campuses.
Yeah, no matter what it is, good or bad, this too shall pass. So, eventually, it's going to change.
Yeah, we've seen that throughout history. Yeah. Things happen, things change. That's life.
Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of campuses, what do you think? Like, right now, they're fighting against all these, SJP, JVP, all these organizations, and all these people who just call for the destruction of Israel and the death of all Jews. How do you? What do you think, like, would be the best way for those students coming into college now, going, in high school, for them to fight this and advocate for themselves?
That's a great question. A lot of these things, a lot of universities have been kicking SJP and Jewish JVP off of their campuses for violating their code. So, I think it's important to understand the law and your school's code of conduct, a lot of which are being updated now. I know the Department of Education has 150 open cases at universities around the country where they are, providing guidelines and examples of what anti-Jewish hate looks like, and, enforcement, and holding schools accountable. And so if you're a student and you're seeing something that violates that code of conduct or violates law, you can go to your administration and say, hey, this is what's going on here and we need action taken. And I think just students feeling empowered to have that knowledge so that they know, what's allowed and what's not, and feeling like they can go to the school and say, what's up, is important.
Yep, that's true. So living in LA, have you encountered any anti-Semitism personally, or people who have encountered any anti-Semitism on the street?
I haven't felt it, walking down the street here in LA. It's not like New York where there's a big central area where there's parades going through all the time. Yeah. It's like there have been a couple of isolated incidents over the past year. Probably most famously the one outside of that synagogue that turned pretty violent. Yeah. In the highly Jewish Pico Robertson area. But otherwise, and you see some graffiti here and there, Free Palestine or whatever. But I've not encountered personally anything truly, horrific towards me. I've dealt with it a lot more on social media and in New York, and in an event I was at in Washington, D.C. I was followed down the block and heckled by a bunch of people. Oh, wow. And yeah, so that wasn't fun. So I've felt the hate, but in LA, it's a kind of a spread out city. It's kind of chill. There's a lot of Jews here. And there's a lot of support for the Jewish community here. After that incident, the mayor, the city council, the police department, everybody was like, we're taking this very seriously. This kind of hate cannot go on in our city. And then I feel like there's, a good support here.
Okay, that sounds good. I thought, you see things online and everywhere, and it makes things look 20 times worse.
Absolutely. It's so tough. And look, a lot of these things are terrible. In certain places, yes, they're worse than others. A place where you're seeing a lot of things are, for example, is Toronto. And I think it really is getting bad in Toronto. But in LA, it's it's a couple isolated incidents does not, a horror show every day make.
Right.
So yeah.
So what kind of things do you get online on social media, for example?
The most common stuff I'll get is anything having to do with Israel at all is oh, you're supporting genocide, you support the killing of, it's just blood libel stuff. Yeah. And the difficult part is these people don't know that they're, living in an upside down world. Right. They have been propagandized and brainwashed, and they think their set of facts is the real. It's like talking to someone who's like, no, the earth is flat. And you're like, how am I going to argue with you? I have the science. I know it's round. You're working from a totally different imaginary set of facts that you've been fed. And again, there are other positions you can take on this that are not necessarily 100% pro-Israel or whatever, but you have to be able to deal in facts and realities. You can still disagree with certain choices Israel is making, but if you're just going blanket Israel's doing this to try to wipe out the Palestinian race, it's we're not even, you can't engage on that because that's just so preposterous and so factually inaccurate.
Yeah, they all went to the University of TikTok.
Yeah, seriously. And and the algorithm feeds it, and you get, the videos are trendy, and other people are then making the videos, and you're some young kid, you don't know anything except what you see on TikTok, and that's where you're used to getting information. And before you know it, you and all of your peers are just working from bad intel and are too sort of cocky to have any humility about it, that you might be wrong.
Yeah, this Israeli comedian, he shared the other day a video of this American girl showing videos from Lebanon of the explosions, and this is Tel Aviv. No, this is not Tel Aviv. That's the kind of stuff they share online, and then they make up their own stories as they go, which is ridiculous. People buy that, buy into it.
It's and the part that bothers me about it so much is like, if, as I said, like if you want to have an actual conversation about it and like point to things that you are not satisfied by in the conduct of Israel or whatever it is, like let's have that conversation. But we can't even have it because you're just like lobbing fake misinformation, blanket statements that you can't even engage with. So we don't actually get to even have a meaningful conversation where maybe you can make a salient point or I can make one and we can agree or disagree or whatever. There's no sparring. It's just blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just like vomit.
They vomit on you, free Palestine and whatever else, genocide. And then that's can't talk to these people.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking of all of that, everybody knows that unfortunately Hollywood stars, or at least most of them, because there have been a few, and there are a few that have been very vocal in support of Israel and do it every single day. But a lot of them, they just don't say anything. They either stay completely silent or they call for ceasefire. There's nothing in between. And recently, they signed this letter, asking President Biden for, to put some pressure on Israel and ask for a ceasefire with not a single mention of Hamas whatsoever. And you made a video about this.
Yes.
And I totally agreed with everything you said in the video. Do you think that they're like that's what they're into, like they're anti-Israel, or I know some names in there are very anti-Israel, like Cynthia Nixon, Mark Ruffalo. But do you think the rest are anti-Israel, or they just sign things because it makes them look righteous? Or
I think it's a little of both. I think some of those people are just performative, have no understanding, very shallow understanding of the situation. And like I said in my video, like if you don't know anything about this and you just did a quick glance at that note, it sounds compassionate on the surface. You say, we want to free the hostages, we want a ceasefire. So most people see those two things, they're like, I've addressed both sides. That sounds reasonable. There's nothing wrong with this letter. Great, put my name on it. Because they don't know any better. And then they, as you mentioned, and as I talk about in my video, like the letter blames the entirety of the conflict on Israel, which is preposterous.
Yeah.
As we all know, I don't need to get into it. And so I do think some of those people are the same as sort of these TikTok teens, that they're getting all their information from the internet and from their lefty, quote unquote progressive circles in which they operate. A lot of their fans are in the same thing, and they want to be liked, and the big artists are all insecure, and you want everyone to like you, and so you're trying to do what you think based on what everyone is saying is the right thing to do, but you're leaving out the critical thinking part where you're actually trying to understand something and then make a mature, intelligent decision about how you might feel about it, rather than sort of being dictated to, here's what you should do and feel.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of them really have no idea.
Oh yeah, and the ones that like quote unquote have an idea, again, it's a very shallow idea of what they think it is. So they might think that they have an understanding when in fact they certainly do not.
Yeah, a lot of them seem to be very, very biased against Israel. They've been like this for years, and that's what they go with. And because I've seen some names, I mean, like Adam Lambert, for example, he's a well-known Jewish singer. Like he's Jewish. He went to Israel. He performed in Israel a couple of times. He knows the people. And then in the beginning, he kind of advocated, like supported Israel a little bit in the beginning. But then all of a sudden, it turned completely to the other side and been signing these ceasefire letters. And it feels like he's one of those people that just want to be accepted by the elite or whoever it is.
Yeah.
And there are so many of those in there. But why do you think? Yeah, why do you think those in Hollywood who understand the situation and are supportive of Israel, why do you think most of them don't say anything?
Honestly, there's this fear. I mean, there's like sort of a couple prongs to the fear. I mean, one is the fear of literally, it's like social media backlash, as if that really is meaningful. Yeah. But it's sort of it all leads to their fear. They're fearful for their careers. They don't want to jeopardize opportunities for themselves. They don't want to annoy or piss anybody off. And I don't know. I mean, it's even saying it out loud, it's like such a weak argument, honestly. My thing, and look, it's hard for me to judge because I'm not a megastar, but I like to think that, my philosophy always is if somebody wouldn't want to support me because I'm Jewish, I don't want their support.
Exactly.
Like, I wouldn't want you to be my fan. I wouldn't want to work with you. I don't want to be involved with somebody like that in any level. So to me, it's like an easy calculus. It's like, if you don't like me for who I am, then see ya. But there are, a lot of scared Jewish actors who want to be liked, and they like working, and they're really afraid, and they'd rather sort of cower than have self-respect.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, you see people like Mayim Bialik and Michael Rappaport and Pink and a lot of others, and Deborah Messing, who's been very vocal about Israel. They speak out all the time. They're very loud about this. They're proud to be Jewish. They're proud to be supportive of Israel. They share, the truth, and it's very inspiring. And I wish there were more people like that in the industry.
I mean, in general, like across the human race, there are more followers than leaders, right? We're not all leaders. It's not everybody's built for it. You have to have thick skin. You have to be able to take the hate. A lot of artists are, as I said, very insecure, very sensitive, really sensitive to that kind of, random stranger social media bullying, and just sort of aren't being drawn to step up in this moment the way others, like you mentioned, are. And like, I know, for example, like for Deborah Messing, like I know she feels the same way I do, which is like, there's not like a choice. I mean, this is the moment. We need to meet this moment. I've never thought twice about doing anything because it's what, like, I have to do it. And I realize that's not everybody.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think we're all in the same kind of thing. And if people, decide to attack Jews in America, they're going to attack everybody. They're not going to look into, this guy didn't say anything, this person said something for Palestine. They don't care.
Of course.
Everybody's Jewish.
And I say this, Montana Tucker and I got into this on my podcast, but, people are always wondering, like, if it were the Holocaust, like, who would I be? What would I do? And again, as I said, like, this is not the Holocaust, but this is an environment that was very similar to the pre-Holocaust environment. And we're seeing now that a lot of people would be the quiet ones who are like, I'm a German first and then a Jew. I'm going to be fine. And I want to protect my business and I'm going to stay quiet and it's going to blow over. Like, we're seeing who that is. And we're seeing the people who are standing up and fighting back. Yep,
that's true. And we'll remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of your podcast, Being Jewish with Jonah Platt will be out today. Finally.
Yeah.
It's a long-awaited podcast. And your first guest is Skylar Austin, which I love. I think he's an incredibly talented guy. One of my favorite Jewish guys.
He's awesome. And he has so much insightful stuff to say about Jewish identity and being Jewish in Hollywood. And, he's outspoken and very proud of his identity. I really loved our conversation.
I can't wait to listen to it. So how did this podcast come about? Like, what made you start?
Yeah, I originally, even before, after that Israel trip I mentioned in April, a friend of mine, Ethan Zahn, we had talked about trying to do a podcast together. We just thought it'd be fun. We'd both been sort of toying with the idea, and we went down this road of trying to make it happen, and we couldn't get funding, and it just was not a successful road. And I sort of realized, if I want to make this happen, I have to do it on my own, because then I can just push that ball up the hill entirely myself and make all the decisions and do whatever. And so that was already sort of in my mind. And then October 7th happened, and I've obviously been so much more involved and vocal on social media. And I started to think, okay, what can be my contribution in the podcast space? What's my lane going to be? Because I want to expand on what I'm offering to people. Mm-hmm. And sort of what's always been at the core of my advocacy is pride, Jewish pride, celebrating Judaism, not just being reactive against hate and against blah, 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 but being pro-Jewish and all the things that are great about it. So that's sort of where I landed in terms of the podcast, is that I wanted to make a show that celebrated the diversity of Jewish identity. That's important to me too, especially in this time. I know so many Jews who feel or have felt at times unwelcome in the community, or guilty for not being a good enough Jew in the community, or being a bad Jew or whatever. And we have a lot of, intermarriage now and conversions and all these different kinds of people have it with different endpoints. And I think it's so important to sort of include all those people in the tent, and to be so much more connected across traditions and sects of Judaism, whether that's, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, or Mizrahi, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, whatever. We all need to be way more united, I think, than we've been. So the idea of the show is to really showcase the diversity of identity by interviewing all these notable Jews and non-Jewish allies, because I think people don't realize how many there are, and how strong so many of them are. And and that's for non-Jews and Jews to see, I think, because I think both within and without the community, people need to understand how beautiful and diverse and wide the spectrum of Jewish identity is, and how it means so many different things to so many people.
Yep, that is true. We do need to know, because especially like this past year, it's hard to, a lot of us feel like we're isolated. We're not, we don't have anybody. It's just us against the world, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to have those allies speak up, and just hear more of them, speak out and say, what they think, like their support and all that stuff. So thank you for including them. That's important.
Oh yeah.
So what kind of guests can people expect? Who?
We're getting all kinds of people from all across different professional fields. Coming up, we've got Gail Simmons, the Top Chef judge. We've got Van Jones, the CNN political analyst. Later this year, I'm going to sit down with Meghan McCain in DC, Chef Michael Solomonov, showrunner Megan Amram. A lot of interesting. I have a Canadian MP who's the assistant to the prime minister on Jewish issues. Lots of cool, diverse, interesting people from all over the country and Canada, and different fields, different Jewish identity, all kinds of fun stuff.
Do you plan on doing any interviews in Israel while you're there?
I'm trying to put one together. It's tough to do from afar, but I'd really love to. And that's my hope and plan, is that I'm going to get one next week while I'm in Israel, but I'm still trying to put it together.
Yeah, I tried as well. I was in Israel in June. I tried to come up, but it's just really hard. There's a lot. I was, I would really love to talk to some hostage families. I know we still have 101 hostages in Gaza right now, and we need to hear them, and we need to, put their names out there. People need to remember, and especially we still have 2 babies in there that a lot of people seem to be, to forgot about right now. But
yep.
Yeah, and it's crazy that it's been coming to a year. In a few days, it's going to be 1 year since October 7th. That's
hard to believe. It's just it's hard to fathom how the horrors that these people are enduring.
Yeah. So hopefully a resolution will come real soon, and we'll have them back home, and
God willing.
Yeah. So where can people find you? If people want to follow you on social media and listen to your podcast and everything, where they can find you?
Yeah, great. So you can follow me on Instagram at Jonah Platt, or the podcast, or I should say, and the podcast at Being Jewish Podcast. That's Instagram. There's the Being Jewish Podcast is on TikTok. I'm also on TikTok, Jonah Platt 1. And you can watch the show on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/@official Jonah Platt. And you can listen to it on any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it. And you can always go to my website, jonahplatt.com, and it'll direct you everywhere if you forget where to go.
All right. Well, last thing, what do you wish people for the new year? Rosh Hashanah is coming up real soon.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wish probably what most people wish is that I wish for some calm and some peace. I wish for this whole thing, this chapter to close and the next one to begin. I wish for these hostage families to have their loved ones returned to them. I wish for, you know, the fighting to stop and for life to resume for Palestinians who have, you know, been so horribly put in harm's way by their own leadership. And I just hope for, you know, love and peace for us all.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, Jonah, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me. Shana
Shana
Tova,
Tova,
Metuka.
family. Yes. And thank you all for listening. Until next time.